And welcome, everyone. We're thrilled to have you here for this Lunch and Learn session today. Today, we're going to be talking a little bit about ITAs, OJTs, and supportive services in regards to registered apprenticeship. So, I have a little bit of a presentation here for you, but this is meant to be very interactive. So, what's going to happen is I'm going to put some things up on the screen. And we're going to have some questions that we want you to answer in the chat. And we encourage you to go ahead and put your questions in the chat too, so that we can kind of share in here and answer some of those questions. So let's go ahead and get ourselves started. So, first of all, I don't know if you guys realize this, but the WIOA funds, Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, can actually pay for all of these things. So, when we're talking about program design and administrative costs, and you're looking at things like how do I do outreach to get apprentices into this program that's over here? This is how you do it. You do it with using your WIOA funds. And you may be thinking, well, I got to think about what kind of tools and equipment maybe my apprentice needs as they're going into this registered apprenticeship program. You can help with that using the WIOA funds. So I didn't know if you actually knew all of this. Some of you may, some of you may not. And I'm going to add one other caveat. Your state and your local workforce board can always put different restrictions or limits on what you're going to do with these funds. I hope that they're not limiting you, and I hope that you can go back after this if they are limiting you and say, hey, how come? Can we do more? Can we find ways to use our WIOA funds or even the SNAP ENT funds or others that are out there on these different costs? So let's take a look now. This is when we're going to start doing some of these questions for you. So, can you use WIOA funds to pay for registered apprenticeship tuition? What do you think? Go ahead and toss that into the chat. And yes, I totally agree with you that it is difficult when the funds are controlled by the local workforce board and they don't really maybe get involved in registered apprenticeship. That's when we have to have more conversations with them. Invite them to some of these things that are going on, like the virtual academy, or we have other webinars with the Center of Excellence that you could invite them to and get them to be a part of. But okay, can we pay for these registered apprenticeship tuition? Absolutely we can. Absolutely we can. And it is, of course, based upon eligibility. So that was one of the questions. I can't I can't use any WIOA funds unless we've determined eligibility. So you definitely have to do that. What about paying for the wages of the job site mentor? Have any of you done that yet? Have any of you paid for the wages of a job site mentor? And have you not paid for it and you're wondering, how the heck would I ever go ahead and do that? If so, let me know that. And I'm seeing that you guys are saying yes to a lot of these things, so I'm loving this too. Most of you are saying that you have not actually paid for the wages of the job site mentor. Did you know you could? There's the question. Did you know you could? And you're asking me how? So, yes, you can pay for these according to the federal requirements of WIOA. Again, your state or your local board may have different restrictions, so you always have to go back to them. But going back to them and having these conversations is very important for you to help expand registered apprenticeship. So, how do you pay for the wages of a job site mentor? Well, first of all, that's going to fall under the OJT, on the job training category for the apprenticeship. So you would include that into an OJT contract, saying this is how much we will pay of the job site mentor wages. So you could actually put in information in there that says we're only going to pay for 10 hours, maybe every quarter, even, or every month, depending on what they're doing and what is the registered apprenticeship will depend on how much time somebody is actually mentoring them. And then again, locally, you may be saying, we can only pay so much for that because of your, restriction of your funds. You may not have a lot of funds. And yes, there, if you look at the, oh gosh, I wish I had the number for the Teagle, you guys. Uh, I can get that. There is a Teagle that deals with everything that WIOA can pay for under registered apprenticeship. And it's also in the playbook for registered apprenticeship. If you guys don't have that playbook, go Google that right now. Okay. So Google for the federal playbook for registered apprenticeship. And that sucker, it's amazing. I go to it all the time. It also talks about Teagles in there, and it really does give you a lot of information about how you can use the funds, what you can do. Okay. So, all right, let's talk about the next one here. How about the salary of your business services representatives who are actually going out and they're helping a business to start a registered apprenticeship program? Are you paying for that work that they may have to do? And tell me what kind of work you think that is that the business services rep is doing. And I'll give you some time. So you absolutely can pay for their salaries. And when they're helping a business to start their own registered apprenticeship program, they could be doing things like actually helping to facilitate a meeting with the local community college to help set up the curriculum for the registered apprenticeship program. And if you have someone who is doing this actually to help them even produce the oh gosh, why did the word just flow out of my mind? The it's the work process that has to go along with a registered apprenticeship program. If you're helping the employer actually set up like what's the curriculum, but also what's the competency, how many hours maybe they have to do of on the job training, all of that a business services rep can help with. We want to make this easier and easier on our businesses because it is business that drives having a registered apprenticeship program. If you have a registered apprenticeship program at a university or community college or wherever, maybe a community based organization decides to do one, if you don't have an employer involved, you don't have a registered apprenticeship program, right? We all know that. And yes, you can have them help bring the people together to have the conversations about what are we doing here on trying to maybe put together a group registered apprenticeship program where you have multiple employers who are saying we need XYZ occupation. will all join together to do this. So your business services reps can do all of that, and you can pay for their salary as they're doing it. What about buying tools for the apprentice? Now, I'm pretty sure you guys are going to know this one, right? It's a big yes. You can do this. You should do this. And when you're doing this, let's talk about this apprenticeship stuff. So if you have a person who's come into you, they're qualified. We're dealing only in qualified people, all right? Meaning eligibility has been determined for them. So if I'm dealing with someone whose eligibility has been established, they're going to go into a registered apprenticeship program. I want to make sure that I am actually clicking all the boxes to show that I am co-enrolling that person in registered apprenticeship training. And if I'm purchasing tools for them, I'm also showing that I'm doing supportive services for them. Okay. So the question over here is the staff salary assistance only available if the apprentice is WIOA eligible? Well, if we look at the staff salary for the business services reps, they're not actually dealing with an individual who's WIOA eligible. They're dealing with a business. And anything that they're doing with the business to help grow or start a registered apprenticeship program is allowable costs under WIOA. So what about you have an employer who's actually the sponsor of the program, and they want to pay, they want to teach, they teach it in their own organization, and they want to pay for the teacher's salary with WIOA funds. Can we do that? Can we help that employer with those teacher salaries, the funds for that under WIOA? What do you guys think? And I'm looking to my lovely assistant, Kim, who is grabbing information from the chat and putting it in for here. No one's even answered yet? Oh my goodness, come on. So you're saying yes. Who's the person that's going to ask me, how the heck do I do that? Huh? Because I know there's one of you out there that's going, well, wait a minute, I can pay for a teacher's salary that is actually employed by the employer, right? If they are employed by the employer and they want to teach them, you and they want them to be the teacher rather for the registered apprenticeship program, you would need to be working on basically an incumbent worker training contract, or you can also include that as part of an OJT contract. And again, depending on what your local board or your state says, you can just line it up and say, this is how many hours we will pay for them to teach, and this is how much we will pay for them to teach. Most of the time, it's smart to have both the dollar amount and the hour amount when you're talking about these salaries that are specifically going to the employer. Okay, certification tests. Yes, that's an easy one. That's an easy one. That's considered a supportive service. You should absolutely be paying for them to take their final tests, whatever that may be. There's a lot of IT registered apprenticeships out there right now. So there's a lot of, cybersecurity kind of certifications and things like that. Absolutely pay for those wherever, whenever you can. Again, eligible people, right? And oh, by the way, if your employer is, because I just saw a little note over here. So if your employer is hiring somebody from outside to teach the courses, you can still provide that salary. You provide it to the employer still. The employer would then be paying the teacher. And again, you still put all those limits. Now, if the employer is saying, we're going to take all of this program to the community college, then you're just making that tuition agreement with the community college and you're paying directly there. And yes, you're absolutely right that co-enrollment is required for WIOA services. You would be amazed at the number of people who are not checking all of the boxes, and therefore it is not showing up as the person being co-enrolled, even though they're paying for training or a supportive service for a registered apprentice. It shows up as just a WIOA training and activity, not as a quote co-enrolled with registered apprenticeship and WIOA. I know that's confusing. Hang on, because we will be doing some training very specific to this, walking people through all the little boxes that if you check them, then it'll show that you are training people with WIOA funds in registered apprenticeship. Okay, these outreach activities to engage the apprentices or to engage businesses. Can WIOA pay for that? And I'm waiting to see what you guys say. And I'm really hoping you're all like typing away, yes, 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 yes. Awesome. That's exactly right. As a matter of fact, we have had some webinars and such on how do you engage apprentices? How do you engage businesses? And all of those activities are allowable using WIOA funds as long as you are talking about the program. So you can't say, hey, come on over to Acme Workforce Board and we're going to help you find the right apprenticeship, or the right apprentice. No, you have to be more specific about saying, here's the kinds of activities that are going on with this registered apprenticeship program. If you want to learn more, come over to us. So just a little bit of specific information there. All right, wages of the staff providing case management. I would certainly hope that that's kind of like a no-brainer one. That yeah, we obviously are providing the wages of our staff under usually under WIOA funds. Some of you may have TANF funded staff that are providing case management. That that works for somebody who's going into an apprenticeship. They're eligible. So anything you're doing case management wise, covered. The wages of the apprentice. What about that? What about the wages of the apprentice? Better yet, can I pay 100% of the wages of the apprentice? Let's see what you have to say. Uh, Hanging on for you. Wages of the apprentice. Yes. Can I pay 100% of it? What do you guys say? Only through an OJT contract. And then there's others saying not 100%. If you're saying not 100%, you are correct. You cannot pay the full amount. And yes, it would happen through an OJT contract. You are not paying those wages to the apprentice directly. You are paying them through the contract to the employer, which means the employer has to give you information back. They have to show you how many hours they worked. They have to show you what they paid, right? And yes, each of the policies, each of the local boards, once again, will set how much you can do. I know that some local workforce boards don't even do OJT contracts at all. I wish they would because it's such a valuable tool for getting businesses involved, but some just don't have enough money to be able to do this. Most boards, when they do this, they cap those wages at 50%. There are some boards that will go up to 75%. 75% is the max. You cannot pay 100%. Okay, so I'm going to take you now. Let's talk about those OJT contracts. Not all of you have OJT contracts, I'm sure, but I hope a lot of you do. And when we're talking about having an OJT contract, you probably already have things in there like obviously the name of the person, the name of the organization, the address, all of that good kind of what a demographic maybe info that I would call that. You probably your OJT contract, the number of hours you're going to pay for, and how much the max wage or the max, dollar amount you're going to pay. If you're doing this for a registered apprenticeship, I highly recommend that you add in the wage increase milestone. So you would want to capture when is that wage increase going to be awarded to the person. And does that, after that point that it's been added, does that change how much you're paying? Which it typically will. And again, if you're going to do wages for mentors or the employer instructors, you need to capture that in your OJT contract as well. And we've had a question about, does this look different if it's for a youth or an adult? No. Y- You're sending, let's say, a 19-year-old into a registered apprenticeship program for healthcare, a healthcare occupation. And you're sending a 32-year-old into that same registered apprenticeship, same employer, same occupation. There's nothing different. They're both eligible under WIOA. You're still able to do these same kinds of contracts. And by the way, I do not suggest that you put multiple people into one contract. Um, Here's why. For ease of monitoring, when we have ETA or DOL come in and do monitoring, for ease of monitoring, it is easier if you have just one contract per person. A little bit more work on our side, but it makes it a lot easier when you go into that monitoring process with them. And when we speak about monitoring, please make sure that you are always telling the business, hey, we're going to be monitoring this person. We're going to check on their progression. It's not like you've just dumped them into the registered apprenticeship program and you're like, see you guys later. I'm never going to see you again. No, you need to be making sure that they're not struggling at the workplace, that if they need any additional supportive services, that you're able to give those to them as well. Okay. I'm going to take us. You can keep asking any questions you want to as well, whether it's on the OJT or something else. But I'm going to take us to our next part. So, ITAs, because with registered apprenticeship, ITAs are different, right? Some of our registered apprenticeships are getting shorter in the length of time they take, like maybe they only take 18 months or 2 years. For some workforce boards, that's plenty of time for them to, they're okay with that. In other words, they've got like a 2 year length of time. But if you have somebody going into a registered apprenticeship that's, say, a 4 year type of registered apprenticeship, you're going to probably have to talk with your board and talk about how can we do a policy exemption for in-demand occupations Registered apprenticeship that's going to take longer. You can do this. I know. I come from this workforce background. Used to run a workforce board. We made it an exemption in our policy that as long as it was brought to one of our committees to have approval for the person to be in that longer, it was accepted by the committee. The committee approved most of the time. I think they only denied one person. So you can do those things, make it for a longer term. Again, comes down to your money and it comes down to what your local policy says. How about this part? Employer sponsors. When they start up their registered apprenticeship programs, they don't always put them on the eligible training provider list, right? Does that impact you? Can you not pay for the ITA, the training, the related instruction? Can you still provide assistance to the apprentice who's, again, eligible? What do you guys think? If the employer is not on the ETPL with their registered apprenticeship program, can you still help? And I'm going to give you a couple minutes. Maybe not that long. We're running out of time already. What do you guys think? Great question. Is it the employer on the ETPL or is it the one providing the related instruction? Well, if you have an employer who's providing their own related instruction, perfectly acceptable with a registered apprenticeship program, it would be the employer putting their program onto the ETPL. If they are using a community college or university or other training provider, like I know there's Horizons out there who does IT stuff, then that related instruction entity would need to be on the ETPL. And you're saying, get them on the ETPL. Absolutely. We encourage employers to put their programs on the ETPL, but I'm going to tell you that there are employers who say, I don't want to be on there because it does require some more paperwork for them, right? They will be monitored, they will be looked at. So some don't want to. But yes, you can still assist. And I love that I've got people saying that they can. Yes, you can. So you can still provide supportive services. You can actually still work out a contract. So this would be like an incumbent worker training contract that would pay for the tuition pieces. Not all of it. Again, remember, we have our limits, but it would be able to still pay for that, even if they aren't on the ETPL. Highly recommend that you try to get your employers on ETPL. But if they're not comfortable, maybe having a time for them to sit down with your OA, Office of Apprenticeship, or SAA, State Apprenticeship Agency representative to have a more full conversation. And oh, by the way, your business services reps can help convene that meeting so that the businesses have a full understanding. When I go on an ETPL, what will it mean for me in this state? What kind of monitoring, what kind of paperwork, all that stuff. So I'm going to take a quick look over here. Yes, you folks are saying yes. Do it for the supportive services. The employer is definitely listed for the location for the training then, and also just having a process to get them on the ETPL. I love that you said that, Cynthia. You can't just throw it at them and say go do this. You have to give them help. And then the final thing here too is if your state actually pays for related instruction, then you can still cover assistance to the business with an OJT contract or to the apprentice with some of the supportive services. All right, guys, I know that we need to stop. We're going to head into another session with you guys. This is like boom, 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 one right after the other. If you need any further information, you can reach out to us through NotUp and we'll be happy to help you guys. Thanks a lot, and we'll see you later.